I mean, if we take on all the tough topics and you still stay, that's a good thing, right? So I'm thankful that you're here, because today we're going to talk about budgets, which is one of my least favorite things in all the world. I'll be candid with you about that. But should Christians have a budget? Like, I hope you understand the answer to that is overwhelmingly yes. Christians ought to have a budget. We're going to be in Luke chapter 16 today, and we are going to examine a unique teaching in Scripture on money, and we're going to apply it specifically to this area of budget. To be candid with you, I was 28 years old when I got married. I had never had a budget in all of my adult life. I just winged it, because that's kind of who I am. Like, by nature, I'm the kind of guy that will just wing it. Okay? Like, my strategy was, there's money in the account, I'm good. Like, what I didn't do well was, A, plan for the future. Like, what future, man? Like, I'm living right now, so I didn't plan for the future. I had exactly $0 saved for retirement, not one when I was 28 years old. As a matter of fact, it did finally catch up to me when I was about 25, and I realized I'd been living paycheck to paycheck since college. I'd lived a full life. I mean, I'd been a missionary, I'd lived overseas, I'd done some great things, I'd had a great time. I really worked in my life during that time. But I realized, you know what, if I ever want to get married someday, like, which wasn't really on my radar, but so if I ever get married someday, it'd be nice to have the money to at least buy a ring. Which I didn't. I couldn't have bought an engagement ring at the time. I was broke. I mean, my checking account balance was less than $1,000, probably less than $500. And I just kind of lived that way. At which point, I made a little change, and I started saving some money. I built myself a little nest egg, a little pile of savings, which mostly bought the engagement ring, ultimately. And when we got married, I'd still never, ever had a budget. And so we had a few rudimentary attempts at it the first year, because my wife is the budget queen. She loves a good budget. She's happy when the numbers all balance. I mean, I love her for that, because she keeps me on track. But I never equated a budget to godliness. Okay? Until we've been married about a year and had enough fights over the budget that we kind of began to go, we got to fix this, figure it out. So the latter part of the sermon, I'm going to talk you through the practicality side of a budget via Dave Ramsey. And in the first part, let's look at Luke chapter 16 and examine what the Scripture says about being shrewd with our money. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I thank you for your grace that you have poured out on us, that you poured out on me, that you have blessed me with a wife who has a mind for numbers. And I thank you that you have given us the responsibility to shepherd the money that you entrust us. You give us a responsibility for finances. Lord, I pray that as we look at the shrewd steward, I pray that you would help us to learn how to practically apply this lesson to our life, and that we would help us to think very carefully how we manage our money. I pray these things in Christ's name. Amen. Now, this is a unique and a bit odd parable. Okay, so Jesus teaches this from a bizarre perspective. The first time you read it, you're like, what? Okay, let's roll. 16, verse 1. In Luke chapter 16, verse 1, now he, that is Jesus, was also saying to the disciples, there was a rich man who had a manager, and this manager was reported to him as squandering his possessions. And he called him and said to him, what is this I hear about you? Give me an account of your management, for you can no longer be a manager. The manager said to himself, what shall I do, since my master is taking the management away from me? I'm not strong enough to dig. I'm too ashamed to beg. I know what I shall do, so that when I am removed from the management, people will welcome me into their homes. And he summoned each one of his master's debtors. And he began saying to the first, how much do you owe my master? And he said, 100 measures of oil. And he said to him, take your bill and sit down quickly and write 50. And he said to another, how much do you owe? And he said, 100 measures of wheat. And he said to him, take your bill and write down 80. And his master praised the unrighteous manager because he acted shrewdly. For the sons of this age are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light. And I say to you, make friends for yourselves by means of the wealth of unrighteousness, so that when it fails, they will receive you into the eternal dwellings. He who is faithful in a very little thing is faithful also in much. He who is unrighteous in a very little thing is unrighteous also in much. Therefore, if you have not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust to you true riches? And if you have not been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you that which is your own? Of the other, else you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and wealth. So this is a unique story, because what you have is Jesus sets up the guy who's an unrighteous manager. So picture investment banker, okay? This guy is managing a portion of his master's estate. So this is your financial advisor, and he has squandered the money. Think Ponzi scheme. He's got your money coming in, and he's spending it on his own personal stuff. We aren't given details. This is a parable on exactly what he squandered the money on, but the picture here is you've gone to your financial advisor and given him some money, and he's just wasting it. And he gets back to the manager, and the master calls him in and says, "Wait a minute. I've heard that you have lost my money. Give me an account. You can't be a manager anymore." Well, the manager realizes instantly that he's lost his job. Uh-oh, I'm getting fired. And so he has this moment of shrewdness where he sets up himself to be employed after this unemployment. So what does he do? He summons his master's debtors, and he reduces their bill. Now, the first guy, he owes, how much do you owe? Verse 6, 100 measures of oil. That's a lot, okay? So think $1 million, okay? Modern day equivalent. The guy owes him a lot of money. He's like, so it would be the modern equivalent of how much do you owe my master? Well, I owe him $1 million. Take your bill and write 800,000 on it. Alrighty. And the next guy, how much do you owe? Well, 100 measures of wheat. Oh no, the first one he reduces by half. Take your bill and write 50. So he reduces his bill from $1 million to 500,000 bucks. All right. The next guy, he reduces his bill from 100 down to 80. The idea being, he's essentially giving them large gifts, right? And he's still authorized for the moment to manage his master's account. And there's some controversy here as to what exactly he's doing. It's distinctly possible that he had simply overcharged these men. That was a common practice for money managers, was to overcharge interests and keep the difference. And so it's possible that what he's doing here is writing off the difference that he had already previously charged them, where he'd extorted them before, and he's essentially giving that back to them. It's also possible that he knows he's being fired and doesn't care, and he's stealing the master's money. Okay? That's possible in view of the text. He's like, look, he's already fired me. I'm looking out for number one. Okay? And I'm going to need a job shortly. So I'm going to steal a little bit and make sure that I'm employed thereafter. Because what does he do? He reduces those guys' bills. Now, if that happens to you, if in your situation, so you go to your financial advisor and say, "Hey, wait a minute, you're stealing my money. Give me an account." And he goes, "Oops." So he goes over here and he calls up his other investor and says, "Look, man, I'm about to get fired. How much do you owe me?" "Well, I owe you $1 million. Take that, write down 500,000. Okay. And he adjusts the bills. Now, once he gets fired, what's he going to do? He's going to call the guy that he let have the $500,000 and say, "Hey, man, I'm unemployed. I need a job." that guy's now indebted to him, right? He's going to go, oh, okay, I'll happily hire you as my money manager. Like that, these people in verse 4, he says, I shall do so that when I am removed from the management, people will welcome me into their homes. He's setting himself up so that when he's unemployed, he's going to be taken care of, because he's essentially given away his master's money. Now, that's a bizarre text. I'll be candid with you. But what's the important part here is verse 8, where it says, the master praised the unrighteous manager because he acted shrewdly. The master at the end of the day was impressed. He went, why didn't you manage my money this well? Because you've protected yourself, you figured out I'm in a pinch and I got to do something. And he acted in a way that protected his interests. Note, he was squandering his master's possession, so he wasn't protecting his master's interest. Okay, but he protected his own. He acted shrewdly. The second half of the verse says, for the sons of this age, these are non-believers, okay? So stealing money's all right in their world. For the sons of this age are more shrewd in relation to their own kind than the sons of light. What he's getting at is, this guy made a plan, executed a plan for his own protection. There's an element of self-protectiveness that Christians don't have, okay? By nature. And he says, we don't always act shrewdly with our money. We don't always act. There are ways to act shrewdly without acting ungodly. Okay, the concept that's being praised here is one of being wise with our money. That this guy makes good decisions for himself long term. And we don't do that a lot of times. Statistically, Americans 55 years or older, okay, this is the 10 years before the official retirement age. Did you know that 35%, it's more than a third now, 35% of Americans between the ages of 55 and 65 have exactly $0 saved for retirement? Not a one. That's a third of Americans between the ages of 55 and 65 have $0 saved for retirement. That's not shrewd. That's not good planning. I promise you, in that third, there are some Christians. They're not all non-Christians in that group. That's not acting shrewdly. That's not acting wisely with regard to the things of this world. Verse 9 says, I say to you, make friends for yourself by means of the wealth of unrighteousness, so that when it fails, they will receive you into eternal dwellings. Okay, this is a unique verse. All right, so let's unpack it a little bit. What does it mean? Make friends for yourselves by the means of the wealth of unrighteousness. That's a phrase for just money. Okay, money is neutral. Money is morally neutral. Money can be used for good things. Money can be used for evil things. It is the person using the money who makes it unrighteous or righteous. Okay, just so we're clear. The phrase here he's talking about is just, money is also temporal. You can't take it with you when you go. In heaven, the streets are paved with gold, not so that we can aspire to some materialistic destination, but that we can understand that the things that are valuable in this world are not valuable in the next one. In heaven, gold is asphalt. It's paving material. It's not valuable. What is? We are supposed to make friends for ourselves by the means of the wealth of unrighteousness, by money, so that when the money fails, they will receive you into eternal dwellings. Now, how does someone receive you into an eternal dwelling? That means they go to heaven first and receive you there. The gist of the verse is this, that invest your money in people so that, when you die, and the money is no more, the people receive you into heaven. There is an eternal value to one thing and one thing only, and that is the souls of men. And we talked about this last week. The only thing that has eternal value, how do you store up for yourselves treasures in heaven? Incidentally, this is a parallel text to that one. How do you store up for yourselves treasures in heaven? You invest in people. You invest in relationships, not in stuff. We're called to use our money shrewdly wisely, and to invest in relationships by means of the wealth of unrighteousness, by means of money. Like, we use our money to build relationships with people, not to build our own little castles where no one is invited in, so that we can lead people to Christ. Because the only thing that has value in this life is the souls of men. That's the only thing that has eternal value. And then he finishes with this explanation of faithfulness. He who is faithful in a little thing is faithful also in much. So he who is unrighteous in a very little thing is also unrighteous in much. Therefore, if you've not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust true riches to you? If you've not been faithful in the use of that which is another's, who will give you what is your own? Now, Jesus is talking about money and faithfulness in the way that we use our money. If he who is faithful in a little thing is faithful in much. Like, this means that whether or not you have a little paycheck or a big paycheck, like, we're all called to be faithful with our paychecks. Like, how are we faithful with our paychecks? Well, it starts with having a budget, which is how I'm going to get here. Because how do you be faithful with the money if you don't know where it's going? Which was me, quite frankly, for most of the first 28 years of my life. Like, I had no idea where the money went. Like, consequently, I'm going to confess my sins publicly. Okay? I gave very little money to church or missions. Now, I was a missionary at one point, but I gave personally very little money to church or missions or to benevolent causes. Why? Because my decision to give was based on, how's that bank account look? Ooh, I only got $82 left this week. Nope, I can't give. And that's how I made the decision. Like, I'm not kidding. I checked my checking account before I went to church and go, nope, I can't give this week. And there was no plan for how I was going to invest my finances. There was I just winged it. And so I didn't give faithfully in any sort of manner. I was not faithful. Verse 11, if you've not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust true riches to you? Like, if you can't manage your money, the unrighteous wealth of the world well, then who's going to entrust true riches to you? That God here ties money management to true riches. Okay? God here ties together money management to true riches. And money management starts with a budget. Now, full disclosure, that was a bad word. I didn't know what it meant. Like, my children already know more than I do, but I didn't know what it meant as a kid. I didn't know what a budget was. I never had one. I got married and I discovered painfully what that was. And about a year into marriage, and by the way, we fought a little bit over money in the first year of our marriage. We decided we got to have a budget. And I was pretty obstinate about, I want somebody who knows what they're doing to teach me how to do a budget. So we took the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace class. Okay, that's how we got started with a budget. Like, what is budget? The basic thing here, a budget is, and if you're taking notes, now's a good time. Okay, this is the budget piece. What's a budget? A budget is a plan for how you're going to spend your money. In its simplest form, that's all a budget is. A budget is a plan for how you're going to spend your money. Like, how do you make a budget? Like, well, it's not that difficult, but it's time consuming, which is what I hated. I mean, I hate sitting down with the numbers, okay? But it is time consuming. Like, because you have to sit down and spend every dollar on paper before the month begins. So you have to have a plan for every single dollar before the month begins. And we do that now. We're 10 years into that process of having a budget where every single dollar that we spend has a name. I know what this is going to. Now, I will tell you, if you're new to the budget concept, you're not going to get it right the first month. It'll take 3 to 6 months to figure out your own budget, because you're going to be going along and you're going to go, okay, you've got all the big picture items are easy, okay? Like, we all know that you have a housing expense, you have some clothing expense, you've got some food, water, utilities. I mean, those are your four walls. You've got those things. And then you're going to go, okay, you're going to go, well, wait a minute, I also have some car insurance, and I only have to pay that every 6 months or every year, whatever. But there's going to be a car insurance bill that comes due at some point. And then I'm going to have a homeowner's insurance due that comes due at some point. Then I'm going to have a health insurance bill that's going to come due at some point. Then I'm going to have, I got car registrations last week. Can I tell you, I knew they were coming. They come every year. They only come once. But there's a budget line item for ours. Okay, they're $84, so that's $168 for the year, which means somewhere in our budget, I promise you, there is a little thing that says car registration, and it's like $13, it's $14 a month, $15 a month, whatever it is to cover that. Okay, I promise it's there because that's who my wife is. Every dollar has a name before the month begins. Now, if you're going to build your own budget, the first thing you need to figure out is what your income is. How much money do you make? Now, some people, that's real easy because they're on salary. This is how much they make. That's my current situation. I have a salary. They pay me every month. It's the same amount. It's amazing. You figure out what your salary is. Now, there's a lot of people in the world that are hourly. Okay, well, some weeks I get overtime and some weeks I don't. Or they're in sales and they get based on commission and their sales go up and down. When my wife was a physician assistant, she got paid by the patient. So her income would be like this, her income was never the same month, never the same twice. What do? Here's how you figured that out. You start with the bare minimum. This is, I always make at least this many dollars. Whatever that is, if you have an hourly job, what's your basic? I always work at least 35 hours a week, and I get paid this many dollars an hour, therefore I make this many dollars. Know what your lowest possible salary is. Okay? If you're on a sales-based salary, and you got to look back as far back as you can look and go, I need at least to go 3 months, and really 6 months, if you can, and go, okay, over 6 months, this was my lowest month. That's the month that I'm going to build my budget from. And then you're going to make a line item for everything you can possibly think of is going to get a line item in your budget. And you go, that's exhausting, by the way, and miserable, and I hate it, but it's necessary. Please don't hear me saying this is any sort of fun. It's work. But this is what money managers do. They figure out where every dollar goes. And then you're going to go, okay, I have this many dollars, and these are all of my known expenses. Some of them are going to get flexible because food is a big category. You have to eat. In our life, I'll be candid with you, at one point we had food and out to eat in the same line item, and that was killing us. Because we'd spend all the money eating out and not have any money for groceries. So, whoops. Those two things are separate line items in the Schrader budget, just so you're aware. There's one that says groceries and one that says out to eat. Why? Because out to eat would eat us alive if I let it, or she let it. Okay, my wife likes to eat out. And I kid you not, for the longest time, the out to eat budget for our household was $30 a month. Now, we had a $30 a month out to eat budget for a very, very long time. Now, if you're doing the math on it, you're going, you can't eat out on $30. Yes, you can, but you got to be careful. And it's 1 or 2 fast food meals a month, man. We didn't actually get to eat out unless somebody else was paying. Because we had this $30 a month out to eat budget for a long time. Whatever your budget, but the food budget, you're going to go, okay, I got my $300. Dave Ramsey advocates envelopes in the beginning where you're learning. You put your $300 in cash in the envelope, at the beginning of the month. Why? Because when you run out of cash, you're out a month. You go, okay. Or you get to the last week of the month and you're like, oh, I got $16 left in the grocery envelope. Now you start staring awful hard at the pantry and you're going, how do I eat this for the next week because I only got $16 left to buy bread and milk? That discipline, it takes about 3 months of tracking every single dollar. If you'll track every single dollar, that means account for, it takes about 3 months to figure out where all the money's going. And you might be surprised. People generally are. I've taken about 60 families at this point through the financial peace class, and they're always surprised at how much they spend on drinks at the gas station. Every single time. I can't believe I spent so much money on Mountain Dew at the gas station. Yes, you did. Like, because it was just a couple of dollars. Like, yeah, times 20 transactions a month. You spent $82 at the gas station this month, and you didn't know it. So it takes about 3 months to figure out all your transactions. And it kept to catch all of the, oh, my car registration's due this month. Once you've figured out, then you got to look at your numbers and go, okay, I make this many dollars. Everything has, every single dollar in the I make this has a name. Now, if you're on commission or you're on the sales, and you get, what happens if it goes up? Or you work some overtime that month? Like, now the extra dollars need to go into savings. That's what that's for. Like, that goes, oh, it doesn't mean, I'm not saying you can't go, okay, yeah, we made a few extra dollars this month, we're going out to a nice meal. Like, you can make an executive decision to do that. Like, but the extra dollars go into savings. Like, now, included in your budget, if you're being shrewd, need to be things like retirement and kids' college and medical expenses. Why? Because those things are expensive. And they will jump up and bite you very fast. Do you know what the number one cause of bankruptcy in this country is? It's medical bills. Because people weren't planning for oops. Oops. And because medical bills, especially in the 21st century, in the age that we currently live in, your piece of your medical bills is a lot. Before we switched, we were like our most recent insurance, we changed what we're doing now, and I'll be happy to talk to you about that if not in the sermon. But our most recent Blue Cross Blue Shield plan had a $6,000 deductible and a $13,600 out-of-pocket max, which means for us to have the baby, it would cost us between $6,000 and $8,000 to bring that baby home out of pocket. I mean, you understand? Like and there's a lot of people that aren't planning for that expense. That's our side. Now we've switched what we're doing, so ours is less. Praise the Lord. But there's a lot of people that are still on, even if you're on employer-sponsored health care, your deductibles have gone up. Your out-of-pocket maxes have gone up. And people would love to say it's never going to happen to me. I promise you, Tiago did not mean to have a giant weight dropped on his foot a couple of weeks ago. But a couple of weeks later, that kid's going to lose a toe. And along with that came 3 surgeries and 2 surgeries and a variety. And there's a bunch of medical bills that are going to come along with that. Life happens. And in this day and age, medical bills bankrupt people all the time. Go get on Facebook and see how many GoFundMes there are because somebody wasn't planning for their medical expenses. That's not being shrewd. A shrewd person, a shrewd money manager, looks at their finances and goes, I have a plan for how every dollar is going to be spent. And part of that plan is I've got to have a line item for medical expenses. And part of that plan needs to be, I've got a line item for car replacement because someday the thing is going to fall apart. And all of those line items, at the end of the day, it's a lot of work. My wife hates balancing the checkbook. She used to like it. It's become a beating. She hates it today, but she still balances the checkbook every single dollar. She uses a computer program called YNAB. I will plug that one. It's YNAB. You need a budget. It's YNAB.com. It's a cheap app. It's an inexpensive program that syncs with your bank, and it lets you create your budget, and it tells you how much money you have available left to budget this month, and it gives you it lets you create all your custom categories. It's handy dandy. The software exists to do it easily. That's what he's talking about here. In the text where he says he's faithful in a little thing. You got to be faithful with the $3 is at the gas station. Our children's lesson this morning was on thankfulness. Why? I was priming the pump for them because you're going to have to tell them no when you're at the store and they want something. And they have to be thankful for the toys that they have at the house. That was the Sunday school lesson this morning. Because all of them have enough. And they don't need to be harassing you for the next Shopkin or the next tractor. All right? Mine were yesterday evening. Okay, I need that tractor. No, you don't need that tractor. You got 72 tractors at the house. You've got enough. You're going to be thankful for those things because the budget right now says zero. There are no dollars in that fund. And if it takes discipline, which none of us like to have, But God calls us to, because as believers we're called to discipline ourselves for the purpose of godliness. And we've got to learn to be disciplined in the use of our finances so that we can invest in eternal things. You cannot give to causes like missions and Lottie Moon and supporting missionaries like the Travises if you've not planned ahead of time that, you know what, at the end, here's my budget, and in that there's a line item that says giving. Like, and then in that there's a line item that says taxes. We have to pay them. We're Christians. Like, don't get me started. If you're a believer in the Lord Jesus Christ, you have to pay your taxes. No cash under the table. Don't do that mess. Jesus said, give to Caesar the things that are Caesar's. Okay, that means if you are owed the taxes, you have to pay them. Which means your budget should include a line item that says taxes, giving, those things included. And they come out before the month begins. You've already planned to spend and give them. Like, verse 11, if you've not been faithful in the use of unrighteous wealth, who will entrust true riches to you? True riches is this knowledge of Christ, and true riches is spending our time and our money in such a way that other people come to Christ. We invest in missions work not because anybody pats us on the back, but because we want people around the world to have an opportunity to hear the gospel of Jesus Christ. But that takes planning, and it takes figuring out how we're going to spend every dollar on paper. No one can serve two masters. He will either hate the one and love the other, or be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and wealth. If you're not going to serve wealth, you have to make it serve you. If you're not going to serve money, you have to make it serve you. You have to have a budget so that you tell it where it goes and what it does. Otherwise, you're going to spend your life chasing your tail trying to figure out how to pay your bills. And that's not the life that God's called us to. And this fall, we're going to do a Dave Ramsey class here at the church. We're going to do a financial peace class here at West Hills this fall because it's valuable. And we learned some things 10 years ago that we'd be financially amiss if we hadn't learned. It just takes the practical side of this and makes it much more clear. So, plug that. In the meantime, if you aren't on a budget, start tracking your expenses and figuring out where does all the money go, and have a plan for how to keep track of where all the money goes, and then we'll start building budgets, because that is the basics of faithfulness in the little things. Would you pray with me? Father in heaven, I thank you that you have chosen to entrust us with your finances, that you have given us each a budget, that you've given us each money to work with. Lord, I pray that you would make us shrewd managers of that money. I pray that you would make us men and women who value the things that you value, and that our budgets would reflect that. Lord, I pray that you would give us the discipline to balance the accounts, the discipline to sit down and have the grueling and painful conversations that often come around deciding how much to put into each category. And Lord, I pray that our marriages would be stronger for having had the conversation. Lord, I pray that you be glorified in all of us as we manage the little bit of money that you've entrusted to us. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.